Morning and welcome to Morning Java here, of course, sponsored by our partners at GetGo, where you can get a 7-inch sub this month for $4.99. It's a 7-inch sub. Chris, I'm joined by Chris Carter here, also of DK Pittsburgh Sports. And Chris, you've been working on a series of video analysis of the Steelers' latest draft picks, and I think they've been very informative of letting people know how these guys will fit into the system here. Have you had you've got some in the books already? Is there anything that stands out to you about the first few that you've done?
I mean, the biggest thing is that when you look at Chase Claypool, it's kind of what Brian Kelly said. His coach at Notre Dame saying he's not just big and fast, because that's what everyone notices, how big he is and how fast he ran in the 40-yard dash. But I really like the way that he competes at every point of his route. When there's back shoulder throws, when there's overthrows, and what I want to point out is when I do these, I'm going through games upon games upon games, and I'm finding the best clips to get you the impression of, like, hey, this is their ceiling, and then these are the things they need to work on. And one thing I found through all of Chase Claypool's are that there were several uncatchable passes that went his way, and he was still trying to go up and get that. I think that with a legitimate quarterback like Ben Roethlisberger, with the talent that he brings, you're going to see a lot more of those 50-50 balls that give him big play opportunities, and then force defenses to have to respect that threat. Because he's not just a guy that you can just say, hey, I'm just going to put a fast defensive back on him, because if you try to jam him at the line, if you don't have a strong punch with that jam, he eats it. Like, I mean, one thing I saw a lot of cornerbacks, they would put their hand right in his chest, and because he's almost 230 pounds, it wouldn't even stop him. I think that combination of things, as well as his ability to compete and go up and get the ball, that's something that people, I don't think they can talk about that they appreciate it, but I think will be a big surprise for Steelers fans when they see how big it can be if it comes together with Ben.
Yeah, I agree. And the physicality that he shows as well, even on his blocking, and of course when he plays special teams as well, it's all there in terms of everything that you would want out of a full-time receiver.
Absolutely. One thing is, because it's one thing to block. You know, Juju throws good blocks on occasion, but there's loving to block, and that's one thing I see in Chase Claypool's tape. You look at, I went through so many game tapes of just when they got in the red zone and when he was on the field, and there were a couple where it was an obvious run. He lined up with a defensive back, and you just saw him get the punch and then just lock in, with his hands on the inside and then driving and pancaking into the ground. It's not just like head hunting and just lowering the shoulder and going for the boom. He's doing the fundamental part of it and then still burying you as a defensive back. That's got to be exciting. And this wasn't just once or twice. This was all throughout his career, through his younger parts and up into 2019. He looks excited about it. He even posted about it on his Twitter account, saying, like, here's a bunch of clips. I love doing this. That's the kind of guy that I think Pittsburgh is really going to love, not just the big play factor, but like you were saying, also the big blocking factor, because having an enforcer on the offense could change a lot of the dynamics. Steelers fans miss having that with Hines Ward.
So Chris, today you had a video analysis of new Steelers offensive lineman Kevin Dotson, and this is a guy that I looked at a little bit going into the draft. The fact that he wasn't at the NFL scouting combine, I kind of pushed him aside a little bit. I did watch him after watching some tape of his teammate at Louisiana Lafayette, who was also drafted, and he stood out on that offensive line. I'm like, this guy's pretty good too.
Absolutely. And here's the thing. He was the first guy drafted that wasn't invited to the combine. Now, people who were super draft nerds were saying, oh, we expected that anyways. But let's be real. No one was thinking about this guy, being a definite pick for the Steelers. And I think it fits a need that they have at offensive line, because it's one thing to have a good technical offensive lineman like Ben Bredesen, other guys that were decent, but you saw most of their wins were because, hey, I got good leverage. I maintained good form. This guy, Kevin Dotson, is just a mauler type. When you see him get his punch on people, it stops their momentum. It throws them back. When he locks onto you, he is a problem. And that's what I wanted to illustrate with the clips that I showed in my breakdown, was when you saw not just at the point of attack, but also when he pulled and he was blocking out on the edge to set up the other part of the hole for a running back to follow. you could rely on him at Louisiana. Now, again, it's the Sun Belt Conference. It's not the SEC, but he did really well against Alabama in 2018. So he has a good ceiling, in my opinion, of a guard for the future of what the Steelers need. And I think they need to have one of those big, mean, mauler type of guards in the middle eventually. He may not be the guy this year, but down, 2 or 3 years down the line, that could be a big thing. But the biggest thing he's going to have to work on, in my opinion, Dale, I saw him, especially in pass protection, he would get a little high in his stance. He would rely way too much on his punches. And it's natural. When you're big and strong and you've been able to bully people all your life, it is hard to train your body to stay extremely disciplined, to make sure that you're riding low out of your stance, and that when people are charging you, that you're not just over-relying on your upper body to win. And you saw sometimes he would put himself in rough positions and expose his frame a little bit too much, and that's when people would take advantage of it.
Well, the Steelers will work with him on that. And as you mentioned, he'll probably get a year on scholarship to get better at all those things.
All right, Dale. So the drafting of Chase Claypool brought a lot of questions in. One, he's the third guy selected in the second round in the past 4 years. The other guy, Deontay Johnson, was just outside of the second round. So now the obvious question has to come into play is, who do the Steelers keep for the long term? And Juju Smith-Schuster's contract is coming up after this season. We just saw the Steelers make sure that TJ Watt's fifth year extension was taken care of. There's salary cap concerns. We don't know what's going on with COVID-19 and how the extended season could impact it. Do you think that the drafting of Chase Claypool means Juju's gone for sure, or is this more of just we're going to have to keep playing this by ear until we see for sure if he bounces back?
No, I just think it's, when we have a draft that's this deep in wide receivers and this talented in wide receivers, you should go into this trying to get yourself a wide receiver. You play more than one, you play more than two, you play more than three. And so, you always want to keep that position stocked. As we saw last year, the Steelers got contributions up and down the roster from different receivers. And so, adding Chase Claypool to the equation here, he's more than just a receiver. I think he's going to be very good on special teams. He had 29 special teams tackles in his career at Notre Dame. He's very good at that. And I also, I think long term, when you look at him, he's more Eric Ebron than he is Juju Smith-Schuster in terms of what you can do with him. Yes, he's got a WR beside his name, and Ebron has a TE beside his name. But these guys are both big matchup problems down the field, and that's what you're looking for. It doesn't matter how you do it and how you parse those guys out in terms of what position room they go to. It's what kind of matchup issues do they create for you on the football field.
No, I agree. It's all about challenging the defense. Like you said, the matchups, you want to force defensive coordinators to have to think like, oh man, I can't leave this guy on that guy. I need to make sure there's a safety over top over here. And then when you force, that's one thing that was so great about the Killer B era for the Steelers, was that when you had Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell and Martavis Bryant on the field, it forced you to pick a poison when all guys were healthy and Ben was on his game. That's what the Steelers need to get back to. That's why I think that this pick was good. And now you got at least a year of having these 4 wide receivers that you put a lot of draft stock in. Now they're going to get to work with Ben Roethlisberger, and they're going to get a chance to go. And you still have 2 tight ends that are starting caliber guys in the NFL, along with a running back stable that you're still kind of interested to see how they're going to play out, and they're all very young. I think that the wide receiver room moving forward, there's nothing that should be set in stone. Anyone that thinks that Juju's definitely gone, I think is speaking a little too early. But a lot is going to depend on who takes on the number 1 role this year. Is it Deontay Johnson being a key separator and a playmaker? Is it Juju Smith-Schuster returning to what he was able to do in 2018? Or does Chase Claypool or James Washington show up as a big playmaker for Ben Roethlisberger? Whoever does that will set the tone of who the offense needs to key itself around. And then we'll see next year who Kevin Colbert and Mike Tomlin want to talk about as far as the receiver room.